We often believe that those who do wrong somehow escape the consequences, at least for a while. But the universe has its own way of restoring balance. And karma doesn't need to be allowed to do its work. Sometimes silence is the clearest sign of all. You don't need to retaliate. Just watch closely. Because the signs that they're already receiving their karma have begun to show. In this video, we'll uncover 5 quiet signs that prove karma is already in motion. Slowly, inevitably, and the final sign may leave you speechless, because what they once sowed, whether pain, deceit, or betrayal, never truly disappears. It simply waits for the right moment to return. No thunder, no lightning, only subtle, creeping shifts that can't be escaped. A lost gaze, a forced smile, sleepless nights. These things go unnoticed by others. But to them, they are undeniable proof that the scales of justice are tilting back. Watch until the end, because you'll learn how to let go, how to observe without attachment, and how true strength lies in quiet understanding. The truth that never sleeps. Not all villains wear scowls. Some wear radiant smiles, charming, polished, untouchable. They appear to thrive, to shine in the spotlight. But remember this, life rarely delivers justice in broad daylight. It works in the shadows. Slowly, silently, with precision. While you're tending to your wounds in silence, something invisible begins to unfold. Something far more powerful than anger. Karma. Stoic wisdom reminds us, revenge is noise, but peace is strength. We don't stoop to bitterness. We don't waste energy on shouting matches or desperate explanations. We rise by staying still. We watch. We grow. And all the while, the universe is already speaking to those who wronged us, in a language no one else can hear. But they do. In the quiet moments. In the mirror. In the solitude they can't escape. You may never receive that long-awaited apology. The truth may never be said aloud. But truth doesn't die in silence, it lives there. And when karma arrives, it doesn't roar. It whispers. And that whisper is enough to shake a soul. Sign 1. The loud mask of happiness, when fake joy screams what the soul can't say. It's strange how loudly some people celebrate their so-called freedom right after they've destroyed something sacred. The ones who left you shattered are often the first to post a radiant smile. The ones who betrayed you now stand on stages of social media, performing their happiness like it's a scripted play. To the outside world, they're thriving, glowing, unbothered. But here's what Stoicism teaches us: the loudest joy is often the most hollow. After leaving a trail of damage, they don't retreat into reflection. They leap into performance. Their social feeds light up with new adventures, glamorous snapshots, and inspirational quotes about healing and growth. They laugh in places they never took you. They hold hands with people they barely know. And for a moment, it works. For a moment, even you might believe it. You might think, maybe they really are happier without me. But the truth is rarely found in the spotlight. It's found in what happens when the lights go off. Real healing doesn't need an audience. It happens in solitude. It's quiet, unassuming. It does not demand recognition. It doesn't flaunt itself to prove its existence. Because peace, when it's genuine, doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. What you're seeing in their highlight reel isn't transformation. It's distraction. It's guilt in disguise. Their sudden obsession with looking better is not about growth. It's about covering up. It's an act, staged for the world but directed at themselves. They don't need the world to believe they've moved on. They need to convince themselves that they have. The smile is a mask. The laughter is a smokescreen. The glow-up is a costume sewn from threads of insecurity. Because nothing is more exhausting than pretending you're over someone when you know, in your bones, that you're not. Karma doesn't always arrive with sirens or storms. Sometimes, it creeps in at night. It visits in quiet moments, right before sleep. In between the beats of curated joy. In the cracks of laughter that never reaches the eyes. It speaks in silence. And its message is simple: you had something real, and you let it go. Remember, Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And Marcus Aurelius, in his wisdom, reminded us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. So, what does the Stoic do? They don't stalk stories. They don't comment on posts. They don't ask for closure or chase apologies that will never come. The Stoic withdraws, not in bitterness, but in strength. Because they know that peace is not performative. Peace doesn't prove. It simply persists. And while the one who wronged you performs their life like an unconvincing play, you move through your own healing with quiet dignity. You don't clap back, you rise above. Because the moment you stop needing their story to make sense is the moment karma starts writing the ending for you. Let them post. Let them shout. Let them pretend. You don't have to say a word, because when the noise stops and the world turns away, the only thing they'll hear is the echo of your absence. And that silence, that's the sound of karma, humming like truth just beneath the surface. Sign 2. When life quietly takes back what they never deserved to keep. Karma doesn't kick the door down. It doesn't come crashing in with thunder and spectacle. No, it seeps in slowly, like a quiet breeze that, over time, erodes the very foundation of what once felt untouchable. And before they realize it, the life they thought was secure begins to unravel, softly. Subtly, without fanfare. That's the second sign karma has arrived. It's not some grand cosmic punishment, it's the slow reclamation of all the things they once treated like they were disposable. Life begins to remove, one by one, the gifts they once held without gratitude. It starts with small losses. A message left unread. A friend who used to care, now distracted. A professional door that quietly closes without warning. They call it coincidence. They laugh it off. Just a rough patch, they say. But beneath the surface, the pattern builds, and it's undeniable. What once flowed easily now resists them. What was once within reach begins to fade. And it's not just about luck, it's about energy. Because when someone misuses presence, they invite absence. When they misuse trust, they summon doubt. And when they mishandle love, life stops handing it to them altogether. You gave them everything: patience without conditions, loyalty without limits, compassion without ego. You listened when their world fell apart. You stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. You believed in their better self, even when they abandoned it. But they mocked your softness. They shrugged off your care as a weakness. They called you dramatic, needy, too much. They never paused to see that your emotional investment was a gift, not a burden. And like many who don't know the value of what they hold, they believed you'd always be there. That your presence was permanent, inevitable. Until one day, it wasn't. You didn't announce your departure. You didn't slam the door. You simply stopped showing up for someone who never truly did the same for you. And at first, they didn't notice. That's how arrogance works. It's blind to what it never took the time to appreciate. But then the silence began to expand. The space you once filled became hollow. The warmth you brought vanished. And suddenly, the noise around them felt colder. The people they now lean on seem shallow. Conversations turn surface level. Support feels transactional, because you were never just a person in their life, you were a sanctuary. And now, the contrast is unbearable. They're surrounded by mirrors of themselves. People who reflect the same coldness they once projected onto you. People who take and never give. Who show up only when it benefits them. And slowly, the realization sets in, they lost something that cannot be replaced. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." And you were. You didn't just love, you elevated them. You didn't just stay, you held space. You didn't just forgive, you showed them what unconditional care looks like. And when they betrayed that, they didn't just lose a relationship. They lost a rare version of themselves, one that could only exist in the presence of someone like you. Karma doesn't always steal what's visible. It takes something far more intimate, identity. It strips away the version of themselves they were when they were loved by you. And no matter how many relationships they try to recreate, how many fresh starts they chase, they will never again be that same version of themselves. Because the energy that shaped them, the grace that held them, is gone. Now, every win feels less fulfilling. Every new person feels less safe. They laugh, but it doesn't echo. They succeed, but it doesn't soothe. Because deep down, they know, I had something real, and I lost it because I didn't recognize its worth when it was mine. That emptiness they feel now, that's not a punishment. That's a vacuum, the space left behind by someone who once poured in without needing to be asked. Let them feel the void. Let them wake up beside someone new and feel strangely alone. Let them scroll through their life and wonder why nothing feels as alive anymore. That isn't cruelty. That isn't karma being harsh. That is karma being just. Because what life gives freely, it can also take away quietly. Not to destroy, but to teach. And nothing teaches faster than the sudden loss of what once felt guaranteed. So no, you don't need to explain why you left. You don't need to wish them harm. Life is already speaking the language of truth, through silence, through absence, through the slow unraveling of what they thought they could mistreat and keep. And the deeper they fall into the hollowness they created, the louder your absence will echo, not as bitterness, but as the most undeniable form of balance. Sign 3. When your presence lingers, even in their silence, they'll never say your name out loud, not in front of others, not even in their own thoughts where they think no one's listening. But you're there, not as a passing memory, but as a quiet, enduring presence they can't fully shake. A ghost they invited but now fear. You've become the silence between their sentences. The pause after they laugh too loud. The stillness that creeps in when they turn off their phone. And even though they never mention you, everything they do whispers your name. Scroll through their social media long enough and you'll see it. Carefully chosen quotes about betrayal. Captions about healing. Letting go. Cutting off toxic people. At first glance, it all looks generic, just content. But look closer. The words are chosen too precisely. The tone too sharp. And something inside you just knows, this isn't about someone, they're trying to talk to you without actually facing you. Because it's not empowerment. It's guilt dressed up in pseudo-wisdom. It's not strength. It's performance. They want you to see them, without showing that they want to be seen. They want to provoke you without inviting confrontation. They want to prove they're fine, while secretly checking to see if you're watching. This isn't healing. It's hunger. The kind that gnaws at the soul when the truth has been buried too deep for too long. You once knew them better than anyone. You didn't just listen to their words, you read between them. You recognized every shift in tone, every pause that held more weight than their entire sentence. You knew when they were lying, even to themselves. And that's why you see through the show. Their friends may cheer them on. The world may applaud their growth. But you know what it looks like when they're hurting. You know the language of their avoidance. And now, the very silence they use as a shield is the same silence that gives them away. Because karma doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it lingers like a thought that won't go away. It whispers reminders at the worst possible times, at the end of a good day. In the lyrics of a song. In the empty space on the other side of the bed. You don't haunt them like a villain. You live in them like a lesson. They post vague thoughts meant to sound profound. But they're just guilt echoing through filters. They craft poetic captions not to share wisdom, but to test if you'll notice. If you'll react. If you'll break your silence. But the Stoic does not react. The Stoic does not post in return. The Stoic does not compete in a battle of cryptic captions. Why? Because to engage is to give your power away. And true strength is never loud. True healing doesn't need to prove it's healed. It simply lets go. Epictetus once said, if someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it. That's the truest form of response. A life so calm, so stable, so rooted in purpose that no one doubts your integrity, even when others try to rewrite the story. So let them talk in circles. Let them keep pretending your absence doesn't matter while everything they say dances around your shadow. Let them craft narratives in which you were the villain, because somewhere, deep in the quiet recesses of their mind, they know the truth. They lost someone who genuinely loved them. And they're still grieving that loss. Not openly, but obsessively, because that's how karma works when pride won't allow apologies. It turns thoughts into hauntings. It turns memories into teachers. It keeps playing the past like a broken song they can't skip. You don't need to correct the record. You don't need to remind them of what happened. Their own mind is doing that for you. On repeat. You don't need to be in their life to live in their head. You don't need a title to hold space in their conscience, because the absence of your voice has become the loudest truth they hear. And that is the most stoic, most poetic form of karmic justice. Not revenge, but reflection. Sign 4. When distrust takes root, and they begin to fear themselves. It begins with a mask they call boundaries. They talk about guarding their peace, about protecting their energy, about cutting ties with negativity. On the surface, it sounds empowering, enlightened, even. But behind the curtain of spiritual rhetoric lies something far more fragile: fear. Not fear of the world. Not fear of betrayal. Fear of themselves. You see, there's a peculiar shift that happens when someone hurts a person they know was good. A person who showed them compassion, patience, forgiveness, a version of love that asked for nothing but presence. When they choose to sabotage that kind of bond, something inside them begins to fracture. Not immediately, not obviously, but deeply. They used to laugh freely. They trusted easily. Their heart was open. Their conversations genuine. But now, everything is guarded. Every interaction is filtered through suspicion. Every smile is scanned for deception. Compliments are dissected until they sound like manipulation. Acts of kindness are questioned until they feel like traps. Because once you've betrayed someone pure, you start believing purity doesn't exist. They know what they did, even if they've buried it. Even if they've rewritten the story to paint themselves as the victim. Somewhere beneath the armor of ego, they remember the truth. They remember how they ignored your efforts. How they twisted your honesty into weakness. How they took your emotional availability and weaponized it. And now, karma whispers the question they fear most: what if someone does to me what I did to them? This isn't self-awareness. This is self-suspicion. The quiet corrosion of trust, not in others, but in their own ability to be worthy of love. And that's what makes it so devastating. Because even when something real shows up in their life, they push it away. Not out of logic, but out of guilt. They start expecting betrayal in every interaction. Not because others are dangerous, but because deep down, they know they once were. This is karma's most surgical punishment, not chaos, but erosion, not explosions, but tremors, a slow collapse of the inner world. They could be lying in bed next to someone new, safe and loved, and yet feel like a fraud. A tightness in their chest that doesn't come from conflict, but from conscience. A silent panic that says, you don't deserve this. You didn't earn this. And if they knew the real you, they'd leave. 2. That voice isn't paranoia. It's the past asking to be reconciled. Seneca once wrote, "He who has done wrong rarely trusts anyone else, for he knows what he is capable of." And that's the truth most people forget. The one who lies becomes the one who suspects. The one who manipulates becomes the one who doubts. Because our conscience is not a courtroom, it's a mirror. And once it cracks, every reflection becomes distorted. They start projecting. They assume every kind gesture has strings attached. Every compliment is flattery. Every new relationship becomes a ticking clock until abandonment. And they self-sabotage before anyone else gets the chance to leave. Not because people are untrustworthy, but because they no longer trust the part of themselves that could have loved you, but didn't. And here's the thing. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to come back and prove that good people still exist. That was never your burden to carry. You were not sent to redeem someone who chose destruction. You gave them truth. They chose betrayal. And life, in its quiet justice, has given them exactly what they earned, not with wrath, but with reflection. Karma doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it looks like stillness they can't stand, smiles they don't believe, peace they don't think they deserve. Sometimes karma leaves people whole on the outside but slowly dissolving from within, one silent, suffocating doubt at a time. And the most inescapable prison, the one where your conscience becomes the guard, and the enemy you fear most, is your own reflection. Sign 5. When life sends them a mirror, wrapped in the arms of another. Not every form of justice comes with punishment. Some come disguised as something they've always wanted. And that's the most poetic arrival of karma, when life hands them love that looks exactly like them. At first, it feels like magic. They meet someone who sparks excitement. There's chemistry, laughter, intensity. It feels like destiny, a second chance, a soulmate finally found. But beneath the surface of charm and attraction is something far more haunting, reflection. This new person isn't just difficult. They aren't just misunderstood. They are the karmic echo of who they used to be. Every unreturned message, every cold shoulder, every emotional game, suddenly, they're on the receiving end. And the worst part? They don't realize it at first. They think they've fallen in love. But what they've really fallen into is their own shadow. Where once they played distant, now they feel ignored. Where once they withheld affection, now they beg for connection. They open their hearts only to be dismissed. They offer loyalty only to receive confusion. The roles have reversed, and now they know the torment of emotional instability. They used to scoff at your vulnerability. Now they're mocked for theirs. They used to call your needs too much. Now they're gaslighted for wanting the bare minimum. And the person they're chasing? Elusive. Hot one day, distant the next. Mysterious, but not deep. Present, but never truly available. And in their quietest moments, when they're lying awake, heart pounding, waiting for a reply that won't come. Something dawns on them: I've been here before. But I wasn't the one hurting. They remember the look in your eyes when you asked for honesty. They remember how they dismissed your pain. How they toyed with your trust. How they walked away from the very thing they're now begging to keep. And that's when the realization hits them, not like a wave, but like a mirror. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. The universe doesn't punish with fire. It teaches with symmetry. Karma doesn't destroy, it reflects. And what better teacher than the lived experience of your own behavior? You don't have to scream, "This is what you did to me." Life whispers it for you, in unanswered texts, in sudden withdrawals, in the feeling of being too much for someone emotionally unavailable. The very confusion they inflicted on you is now the chaos they must survive alone. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And yet the universe, ever just, goes further than revenge. It seeks restoration through understanding. And true understanding is not intellectual, it is felt. It is wept through. It is endured. They're not being punished, they're being mirrored. And when they ask themselves, "Why is this happening to me?" the answer won't come from anyone else. It will rise from their own conscience. Quietly, because once I was the one who did this. There is no one left to blame. No one to twist the story for. No villain to project onto. Just them, and the karmic cycle they created, now closing its loop around their heart. Let them sit in that realization. Let them feel the absence of control, the sting of being misunderstood, the weight of being emotionally discarded. Because what they once justified, they now endure. And here's the Stoic truth: you don't wish them harm. You don't clap from the sidelines. You simply move forward, because karma doesn't need your applause. It already has your silence. And while they're trapped in the experience of their own undoing, you're somewhere else entirely, at peace, whole, and growing in a direction they will never again be allowed to follow. That's not revenge. That's evolution. That's justice written in quiet lines across the soul. Karma doesn't shout. It whispers. And those whispers often echo the loudest in silence. You never had to get even. You never had to explain, prove, or plead. Because life always returns what was given, even if it takes time. You see, truth doesn't rush. It waits. And when it speaks, it doesn't need volume. It has weight. The Stoic path is not about revenge. It's about refinement. It's about becoming so grounded, so inwardly whole, that nothing, and no one, can disturb your peace again. Let karma handle the noise. You rise. If this message spoke to your soul, stay close. Subscribe to this space, where we don't just talk about healing, we live it. Silently, powerfully, together. Because true power doesn't need attention. It needs discipline, clarity, and the courage to walk away, and never look back.